Factory farms and family-owned farms are at heads with each other. Family farms have a history in our country and have been around forever since agriculture was industrialized, they now have to compete with factory farms. Factory farms can produce food faster and on a larger scale, but is it really the best for us? There are many controversies involving factory farms. Consumers are questioning the treatment of animals, quality of food, and ethics behind it all. Family-owned farms don't include these risks to people, but are being affected economically. They are suffering and cannot compete with the prices and quantity that the factory farms provide. Our country is changing its source of food and how it is produced, but how will that affect us in the future? We decided to interview local family farm owners and what they think about factory farms and the status of their own farms. We're on our way to the farm to get some information about small farms and factory farms. We're going to the Jones farm. Our friend Devin Frederick, his grandpa. That's who we're interviewing. Made one friend so far on the farm. This dog. Hi, buddy. I love you. Got a goose over there in a chicken coop. They're filling a semi with something. Yep. Okay, tell us a little bit about your farm and how long that you've had the farm in your family.
1960 we got the farm. So I don't know.
Okay.
Whatever that 40, 50, 55 years, something like that, yeah.
Long time. What do you guys like grow here and the animals?
Corn, soybeans, hay, wheat.
Nice. How have you been doing in recent years compared to past years?
Farming?
Yeah.
It's a great way of life. You really don't jump ahead. I guess it's a very slow growing, maybe. Yeah.
And then what are your views on factory farms? Just like bigger farms. So you guys have like a smaller farm here?
They get time off. When we farmed milk cows, we had to do it every day.
Yeah.
I guess there was maybe 15 years we never left the farm.
Yeah.
Other than going grocery shopping or something like that. Where the factory farm, they got help.
Yeah.
And they probably work an 8-hour day, except for the owner. The owner he might be not much different than I am.
So you're here 24/7 then, working all
Right.
day?
Okay.
You know, today we don't have, we had dairy cattle for like 15, 20 years. And at that time, we were here all the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, how many dairy cattle do you have around?
At the time we were milking, we probably had a little over 100 head of cattle.
Do you believe that the food that they produce at the bigger farms is safe, or do you think
Yes.
it's
Oh
safe?
yeah, they're inspected state and federal government inspects the farm.
Yeah.
Most of the big farms are kept up well.
Yeah.
I think that they do a good job. Yep. We have a neighbor right down here, Steve Snudden, and they're going to have a farm progress show next year, and he does a really good job. And then Walter York is over here, and Lidl's are around, Speckman's are around doing a lot of milking, and
Yeah.
the people that are doing it do a good job.
Yeah.
That's good.
The beef cattle, we raise 20, 25 head of cows, And of course then we get 20, 25 calves. Those we raise for meat.
Yeah.
Then we grow our corn and soybeans and wheat and some hay for the cows. We went to Nestle Foods in Burlington.
Yeah.
And we got the cocoa bean shell, the hull of the cocoa bean, and we use that for livestock bedding for many years. Menards, the lumber yard,
Yeah.
they get probably 90% of the shell.
Oh, wow.
The load that we just loaded now, I don't know, that went to Michigan, but it didn't go to Menards. That is our beef herd.
Okay. Now, what kind of cows are those?
Well, the red ones, they were Herefords.
Okay.
And the black ones, Angus. But we crossbred them, and we crossbred them with Shorthorn. Have you been to Devin's house?
Yeah, I've been there before.
Okay. Where we stored the corn, the feed for the cows during the winter, it's gone. It hasn't, what's left is kind of spoiled. We'll just spread it on the field now. This is where we're doing all the bagging.
Now, what do you feed your cows? Like, what kind of food?
Mainly, they eat a lot of hay. They eat the whole corn plant. We'll chop that up and grind it. And during the winter, they get the energy from the corn. It keeps them warm. They get salt, mineral, little protein. Protein they get from soybeans, processed soybeans.
Okay. Small farms produce quality meat and milk compared to factory farms. Factory farms inject their animals with antibiotics. This creates a breeding ground for viruses that are resistant to the antibiotics. This creates a health risk to the public. The factory farms have so many animals confined in an area that it creates stress for an animal. The stress makes the animals more susceptible to disease and sickness. The mass of animals in one area not only harms animals, but harms people and the environment too. A large number of animals confined in a space creates a lot of manure. This manure is moved in manure lagoons on the farm. Manure lagoon is a pit that all the manure is dumped into. Large-scale farms produce 500 million tons of manure each year. The United States, that is 3 times the amount of sewage that the United States produces in a year. There's too much manure for farms to handle, so often there are manure spills that pollute nearby waterways. In 2008, a 600 heifer farm, Rockland farm, was ordered to pay $28,000 for manure discharge that killed 225 trout in a nearby creek and many more fish, as many as 9 miles down the stream. Between 2003 and 2010, Wisconsin has issued 200 permits for mega dairies to open and expand. Since then, although repeated violations have been reported, the state has not revoked or suspended one permit.
Okay, so Mr. York, tell us about your farm and how long it has been in your family.
The farm I own now, I've owned for 3 years. It's a dairy farm. The first 2 years were kind of tough, but things I love went off.
What about the farm you grew up on? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a very large farm, 1,200 dairy cows, 800 acres. I've been in the family for 70 years maybe. It's done very well.
Okay, what are your views on factory farms?
My number one view on factory farms, I don't know what a factory farm is. I know it's a derogatory term. large farms.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, large farms are as humane or more humane as little farms.
So you think that they're safe then? And what they-
Safe for...
Like for the animals and then the food that you eat.
Definitely. There's always bad everything. I mean, there's going to be a few bad farms. There's going to be a few bad employees, a few bad owners. But in general, farmers understand that in order to make money, they have to treat their animals well. If they don't, they'll be sick, they'll die, they will not be farming. So basically, I've been on a lot of large farms. I've been on a lot of small farms. And I don't think it really matters whether it's large or small. What it matters is the managers. But I do know if they don't manage well, if they don't treat their animals well, whether they're large or small, they will go out of business. Because you make money by treating the animals humanely. They're not going to produce milk. They're not going to grow. They're not treated well.
What do you think about like all the manure that's produced? What happens with the manure?
It doesn't matter whether the farm's large or small. You're going to have the same amount of manure per animal. And large animals or large animal farms are under much tighter regulations as far as how they handle it. My farm, which is only 120 cows, has very minimal regulations as far as manure and how it's handled. You know, my brother's farm, the farm I grew up on, they're regulated by the DNR. They're very strictly regulated on when they can put it on, how they can put it on. So I would say in general, they're probably less environmentally harmful than a small farm has really small, virtually no regulations.
So are they watched a lot closer then than your farm would
My
be?
farm is, I mean, as far as, there is really no regulations as long as they're not doing anything outrageous. You know, spreading manure on the frozen ground, those kind of things. But the larger farms are much more closely regulated.
In the past 20 years, the number of meat producers has declined sharply, and farmers are barely breaking even. Industrial farms determine what everyone else can sell their stock for. They set the prices, and the people have a hard time competing with them. The profit that farmers make off the livestock has declined over the years, but the amount of work they're putting in has remained the same. In our interview with Robert, he discussed how they basically work 24/7 on the farm and don't have the luxury that factory farms do of being able to hire people to fill the jobs. We enjoyed being able to take a tour of his farm because it was something that we wouldn't be able to do at factory farms. John and I are for small farms and want people to see that they are producing what they are producing is quality and safer. Okay, so some of the error that we found in our film, like when I interviewed Mr. York, his was mainly about his farm had dairy cattle on it, and we were looking for more like the beef cattle stuff. But it was kind of cool to learn that with dairy cattle, everything is really safe in general, like even with the bigger farms and the smaller farms. So he didn't really know anything about beef cattle because he doesn't raise beef cattle at all. So that was interesting to learn, and I wish we got to like meet someone who like talked about that. But because I still think it's unsafe, because when you look it up online about the CAFOs, it's really scary, and they're always packed into like small areas and stuff if you look on the Google Images. So